Captain Jake Morrison stared out at the dark space through the bridge windows of the UES horizon. Stars dotted the black sky like tiny diamonds. His ship had been traveling for 3 weeks to reach this system. The crew was tired but excited. They were explorers, and this was what they lived for. "Captain, we're getting some strange readings," said Lieutenant Ben Parker from his station. He was the ship's tactical officer, a young man with sharp eyes who never missed anything important. Jake walked over to look at Ben's screen. "What kind of readings?" "Metal signatures, sir. Big ones, and they're moving." Dr. Lisa Carter looked up from her workstation. She was the ship's expert on alien life, though she had never actually met any aliens before. No human had. "Could it be natural?" she asked. Ben shook his head. "No, ma'am. These patterns are too regular, too organized. I think we're looking at ships." Jake felt his heart beat faster. For 50 years, humans had been traveling to other star systems. They had found planets with simple life, but never anything intelligent. Never anything that could build spaceships. "Red alert," Jake ordered. "All hands to battle stations." The bridge lights changed to red. Throughout the ship, crew members ran to their positions. Jake had been in the Space Navy for 20 years. He knew that first meetings with unknown forces could go very badly. "Sir, they're changing course," Ben reported. 3 large ships heading directly toward us. Dr. Carter moved to stand beside Jake. "Captain, this could be the most important moment in human history. We need to be careful." "I know, Doctor. But we also need to be ready." Jake turned to his communications officer. "Open a channel on all frequencies. Let's see if they want to." "Talk." The first response came 5 minutes later. It wasn't words, but it was clearly a signal. The alien ships were trying to communicate. Dr. Carter worked with the communications team for an hour. Slowly, they began to understand the alien language. It was complex with many clicking sounds, but the aliens seemed intelligent. Finally, a voice came through the speakers. It spoke in broken English, but the words were clear enough. "Human vessel. We are Zephyrians. We wish to meet." Jake exchanged looks with Dr. Carter. She nodded. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth. Ship Horizon. We welcome peaceful contact." The alien voice responded. "We send small ship to meet. You send small ship to meet. We talk in space between." An hour later, Jake found himself in a shuttle with Dr. Carter and 2 security guards. They met the alien shuttle halfway between the ships. The alien craft looked strange, more like a living thing than a machine. Its surface seemed to pulse gently. The meeting area was a small chamber that both shuttles could connect to. When the doors opened, Jake got his first look at an alien. The Zephyrian was tall and thin, with gray skin that seemed to shimmer. It had 4 arms and large black eyes. When it spoke, its voice was musical. "I am High Curator Veltar. We are pleased to meet humans." Dr. Carter stepped forward. "I am Dr. Lisa Carter. This is Captain Morrison. We're honored to meet your species." The talks went well at first. Veltar seemed very interested in human culture. He asked many questions about Earth, about human cities, about how many people lived on each human world. "We find humans very interesting," Veltar said. "Your species is young but already travels far." "How many worlds do you control?" Jake answered carefully. "We have colonies on 12 worlds. Our population is growing." Veltar's large eyes seemed to shine. 12 worlds. How many ships protect these worlds? Dr. Carter noticed the question was odd, but she translated anyway. Jake felt uncomfortable but answered. "We have a defense fleet. Why do you ask?" "We wish to learn. Knowledge helps friendship." The meeting lasted 3 hours. Veltar asked many questions about human military strength, about the locations of Earth and the colonies, about human weapons and defenses. He said it was all for cultural understanding. When they returned to their ships, Dr. Carter seemed excited. "Captain, this is amazing. First contact with an alien species. Think about what this means for humanity." But Lieutenant Ben Parker had troubling news. "Sir, while you were gone, we detected scanning beams from their ships. They were examining our hull, our weapons, everything. And they've been sending encrypted messages to somewhere outside the system." Jake felt cold. "Show me." The evidence was clear. The Zephyrian ships had been studying the horizon in detail. They had also sent detailed information about the human. "Shipped to unknown receivers." "Get me another meeting with Veltar," Jake ordered. This time the meeting was different. When Jake confronted the alien about the scans and messages, Veltar's friendly manner disappeared. "You are observant for a primitive species," Veltar said, his musical voice now sounding cold. "Primitive?" Dr. Carter asked. Veltar seemed to grow taller. "Humans are children playing with fire. You have no idea what exists in this galaxy." Jake's hand moved closer to his weapon. "What are you talking about? We are part of the hegemony. We have conquered over 200 species across this galaxy. Some we keep as slaves. Others we destroy completely." The temperature in the meeting chamber seemed to drop. Dr. Carter stepped backward. Veltar continued. "Your 12 worlds will be harvested within one cycle of our sun. Your Earth will follow. Your people will serve the hegemony or die." Jake drew his sidearm. "Like hell they will." Veltar laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "You cannot fight the hegemony. We have fleets of thousands of ships. We have armies of billions. Species far stronger than yours have tried to resist. They all failed, maybe," Jake said. "But humans don't give up easy. We shall see." The meeting ended badly. As Jake and his team returned to their shuttle, Veltar called out one last warning. "Tell your leaders to prepare their people for slavery. It will be easier than death." As soon as Jake was back on the horizon, alarms began screaming. The 3 Zephyrian ships had opened fire without warning. "Shields up! Return fire!" Jake shouted as he ran onto the bridge. The battle was fierce but short. The Zephyrian weapons were powerful, but human ship design was different from what they expected. The Horizon's armor held, and its weapons found their marks. One alien ship was destroyed. The other 2 retreated, but not before doing heavy damage to the Horizon. "Damage report," Jake called out. "Hull breaches on 3 decks. Engine power at 60%. We can make it home, but just barely," reported his chief engineer. Jake looked at the stars outside. Somewhere out there was an enemy that had conquered 200 worlds, and now they knew about humanity. "Communications, send a priority message to Earth Command and all colonies. Maximum encryption." Dr. Carter looked at him. "What should the message say?" Jake thought for a moment. "Tell them we are not alone in the universe, and we are not safe." As the damaged Horizon began its long journey home, Jake wondered if humanity was ready for what was coming. The Zephyrians had seemed so confident, so sure that humans would be easy to defeat. They were about to learn that humans were different from other species they had faced. Humans didn't surrender easily. And when threatened, humans could be very, very dangerous. The war for humanity's survival was about to begin. 3 months had passed since Captain Jake Morrison's warning reached Earth. The message had created panic at first, then anger, then determination. Humanity had faced extinction before and survived. They would do it again. Fleet Admiral Kate Sullivan stood in the command center on Earth's moon base, watching the screens that showed human space. Every colony was preparing for war. Every ship was being armed. Every person was being trained to fight. "Admiral, we're getting reports from the Kepler mining colony," said her aide, Commander Amy Johnson. 3 unknown ships just appeared in their system. Kate felt her stomach tighten. "Send everything we have in that area, now." But they were too late. By the time human ships arrived, The attack had already begun. General Ron Davis was on Kepler 442c when the aliens came. He commanded the Colonial Marines stationed there to protect the mining operations. When the first energy beams hit the colony's outer buildings, he was ready. All units, defensive positions. Make every shot count, Ron spoke into his radio as. Explosions shook the ground around him. The alien ships landed troops outside the main settlement. Ron watched through his binoculars as strange creatures poured out of the ships. They looked different from the Zephyrians that Morrison had described. These were larger, with thick armor and powerful weapons. "Sir, they're coming straight at U.S., reported Sergeant Bill Hayes, one of Ron's best men. "No fancy tactics, just walking right into our kill zone." Ron smiled grimly. "Then let's give them what they want." The aliens had clearly expected an easy victory. They marched forward in neat lines, just like they probably did on every other world they conquered. But humans didn't fight like other species. The first alien wave hit the human defenses like water hitting a rock. Marine snipers picked off alien officers from hidden positions. Explosive traps detonated under alien vehicles. Human fighters used the mining tunnels to attack from unexpected directions. The aliens were confused. Where other species had probably surrendered or run away, humans kept fighting. When the aliens destroyed one human position, 3 more opened fire from different locations. Sergeant Hayes dragged a wounded Marine to safety as alien energy blasts scorched the air above them. "General, they're not fighting like anything we trained for. They just keep coming forward no matter how many we kill." "That's because they've never had to really fight before," Ron replied, loading a new power cell into his rifle. "Every other species probably gave up quick. We're not going to." The battle lasted 18 hours. The aliens had better weapons and more soldiers, but humans had something the aliens didn't understand. They had the will to keep fighting, even when losing. In the end, the colony fell. Most of the civilians had been evacuated through the mining tunnels, but many Marines died holding the line. The aliens won, but they paid a price they never expected. War Prime Zarketh the Destroyer commanded the hegemony forces from his flagship. Above the planet, he was a veteran of 50 conquered worlds. Never had he lost so many soldiers taking such a small target. "Report," he demanded from his subordinate. "The colony is ours, War Prime. But we lost 30% of our assault force. The humans fought with unusual tactics." Zarketh studied the battle reports. On every other world, species either surrendered immediately or fought briefly before giving up. These humans had fought building by building, tunnel by tunnel, until almost all of them were dead. Desperation, Zarketh decided. They know they cannot win, so they thrash about like dying animals. When we bring the full fleet, they will see the futility and surrender. But Zarketh was wrong about humans. He didn't understand that what he called desperation, humans called courage. News of the Kepler battle reached Earth within hours. Admiral Sullivan called an emergency meeting of all human military leaders. "They hit us hard," she said to the assembled officers. But General Davis made them pay for every meter of ground. His report shows they can be hurt. Dr. Peter Hayes, the Director of Defense Research, stood up. "Admiral, we've been studying the wreckage from Captain Morrison's encounter. Their technology is advanced, but it's old. They haven't had to improve it because they've never faced real resistance." "What does that mean for us?" asked Admiral Sullivan. "It means they're not used to adapting. They have one way of fighting, and they use it everywhere. But humans adapt. We change. We learn." Captain Morrison, now promoted to Admiral after his encounter with the aliens, spoke up. "They're gathering a massive fleet. Our scouts report at least 2,000 ships heading this way." The room fell silent. Humanity's entire space navy had only 300 ships. Admiral Sullivan looked around the room at the faces of Earth's defenders. "Then we make those 300 ships count. Dr. Hayes, what do you need to give us an edge? Time and resources. And I need every piece of alien technology we can get. You'll have it. As the meeting ended, Admiral Morrison approached Sullivan. Kate, they want us to be afraid. They want us to surrender without a fight like all the others. Sullivan nodded. What are you thinking, Jake? I'm thinking we send them a message. Let them know exactly what kind of enemy they're facing. Sullivan smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. Do it. Admiral Morrison went to the communications center. He opened a channel on all frequencies that the aliens monitored. He knew they would be listening. This message is for War Prime Zarketh and all hegemony forces, Morrison began, his voice steady and cold. You made a mistake when you chose to threaten humanity. We are not like the other species you've conquered. We don't surrender, we don't break, and we don't forgive. Morrison paused, thinking of the Marines who died on Kepler, of the civilians who had to flee their homes. You want to harvest our worlds? Try it, but know this. For every human colony you touch, for every human life you take, we will burn 10 of your worlds to ash. We will hunt you across the galaxy. We will show you what happens when you threaten the children of Earth. Morrison's voice grew harder with each word. Your worlds will burn. The message was broadcast across subspace, reaching not just the hegemony fleet but dozens of other alien species throughout the galaxy. For most of them, it was the first time they had ever heard a subject race speak with such defiance. On the hegemony flagship, War Prime Zarketh listened to the message with amusement. Brave words from a species that will be extinct within a year, he told his officers. Prepare the full invasion fleet. We will show these humans what happens to those who defy the hegemony. But on conquered worlds throughout the galaxy, other species heard the message too. Slaves who had served the hegemony for centuries suddenly remembered what freedom felt like. For the first time in generations, some began to whisper about rebellion. On a prison world called Thylo 7, an alien named Kilthara listened to the human transmission. Her people had been enslaved for 400 years. She was a scientist, forced to work in hegemony weapons factories. Did you hear? Whispered another prisoner. A species that refuses to surrender. They threatened the hegemony itself. Kilthara felt something she hadn't felt in decades. Hope, perhaps, she whispered back. The hegemony is not as strong as they claim. Back on Earth, Admiral Sullivan watched the stars through her office window. Somewhere out there, the largest fleet in galactic history was coming to destroy humanity. But humans had advantages the aliens didn't know about. They had determination. They had the ability to adapt and change. Tactics. Most importantly, they had something to fight for. The hegemony conquered through fear and overwhelming force. But they had never faced an enemy that refused to be intimidated. They were about to learn that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their numbers. It was their refusal to quit. The real war was about to begin. War Prime Zarketh stood on the bridge of his massive flagship as it entered the Proxima Centauri system. Behind him followed 200 of the most powerful warships in the galaxy. He expected to find human ships cowering behind their planets. Defenses. Instead, he found empty space. Where are they? Demanded Zarketh. His sensors showed the human colony world, but no defensive fleet, no orbital stations, nothing. War Prime, we detect 30 human ships hiding in the asteroid belt, reported his tactical officer. They appear to be mining vessels, Zarketh laughed. 30 ships against 200, and they're not even warships? This will be over quickly. He was wrong. Colonel Steve Martinez crouched in the command center of Mining Station Alpha, deep inside the largest asteroid in the belt. Around him, 200 human soldiers prepared for battle. They weren't regular soldiers. They were miners, engineers, and colonists who had volunteered to fight. Remember the plan, Steve told his team over the radio. Hit hard, hit fast, then disappear. Make them chase us into the rocks. The human ships looked like ordinary mining vessels, but Chief Engineer Tony Brooks had spent months converting them. Hidden weapon ports opened along their hulls. Engines designed to push massive loads of ore now gave them surprising speed and maneuverability. Dr. Rachel Green watched her modified quantum torpedoes load into the launch tubes. She had discovered that hegemony shields were designed to stop energy weapons, not her new projectiles that used quantum physics to ignore normal defenses. All ships, this is Colonel Martinez. Remember what they did to Kepler. Make them pay. The first human ship appeared to flee as the hegemony fleet approached. Zarkith ordered his ships to pursue, expecting an easy kill. The human vessel led them into a dense asteroid field. Suddenly, rocks that looked natural split open to reveal hidden missile launchers. What Zarkith thought was an asteroid field was actually a giant trap. Hundreds of quantum torpedoes streaked toward the hegemony ships. The alien shields, designed to stop laser beams and plasma bolts, did nothing against weapons that existed. In multiple dimensions at once, 3 hegemony cruisers exploded in the first salvo. "What was that?" Zarkith screamed. "Our shields didn't even slow them down." Before his officers could answer, the human mining ships attacked from 6 different directions. They moved like fighters, not the slow cargo vessels they appeared to be. Their weapons, adapted from mining lasers and ore crushers, tore through hegemony hulls. But the real surprise came when boarding pods shot out from the asteroids. Colonel Martinez led the assault himself, his team using magnetic boots to land on enemy ship hulls. "Plant the charges on the engine sections," Martinez ordered as his soldiers cut through alien armor with tools designed to slice through solid rock. "Remember, we're not here to hold ground. We're here to break their toys." Human boarding parties didn't fight like any enemy the hegemony had faced. Instead of trying to capture ships, they sabotaged them from within. They turned the aliens' own life support systems against them. They reprogrammed navigation computers to crash ships into asteroids. Most importantly, they captured alien officers and took them back to the human base. The battle lasted 8 hours. When it ended, the hegemony had lost 60 ships and 3 million soldiers. The human fleet had lost 12 ships. Zarkith stared at the tactical display in disbelief. "How is this possible? They're primitives." His surviving officers had no answers. They had conquered hundreds of worlds, but they had never faced an enemy like this. Back on the human base, Dr. Peter Hayes interrogated captured hegemony officers. What he learned changed everything. "Admiral Sullivan, you need to hear this," he reported over subspace to Earth. "The hegemony isn't as strong as we thought." Admiral Sullivan listened from her command center. "Explain." "They've conquered over 200 species, but they did it the same way every time. They show up with massive fleets, demand surrender, and most species give up to avoid casualties. The few that fight back are usually defeated quickly because they try to protect their populations." Sullivan frowned. "What's your point, Doctor?" "Their entire military is built around that strategy. Overwhelming force to break enemy morale. They've never faced prolonged resistance. Their logistics are designed for quick campaigns, not long wars." Admiral Morrison, listening from his ship near Mars, understood immediately. "They're not used to taking heavy losses." "Exactly," Hayes continued. "Every species they've conquered either surrendered fast or died fast. They've never had to adapt their tactics because they've never needed to." Sullivan smiled grimly. "But humans don't surrender fast, and we're too stubborn to die fast." "There's more," Hayes said. "Their technology is advanced but old. They haven't improved it in centuries because they never had to. They just used the same weapons and tactics on every world." On his flagship, Zarkith received reports from across the galaxy. Human raids were hitting hegemony supply lines in a dozen systems. Instead of defending fixed positions, Humans attacked everywhere and nowhere. Captain Nick Turner led one such raid on a hegemony supply depot 50 light-years from human space. His small fleet of converted cargo ships appeared out of hyperspace, destroyed the depot, rescued enslaved workers, and vanished before reinforcements arrived. This is Captain Turner of the Human Liberation Fleet. He broadcast on all frequencies as his ships jumped away. To all enslaved peoples, humanity has not forgotten you. We will return. These broadcasts reached species that had been slaves for centuries. On Philo 7, the scientist Keel Farah gathered with other prisoners to listen to the human messages. "They're actually winning battles," whispered one of her fellow slaves. "The hegemony is losing ships." Keel Farah felt the spark of hope growing stronger. If humans can resist, perhaps we can too. Across the galaxy, similar conversations were happening on 100 worlds. The hegemony's greatest fear was becoming reality. Their subjects were beginning to believe they could fight back. Meanwhile, Zarkith faced increasing pressure from his superiors. High Executor Morden, Supreme Commander of all hegemony forces, sent an angry message. "You were supposed to harvest the humans in one campaign." Morden's voice crackled over subspace. "Instead, they are raiding our territory and inspiring rebellion. Fix this, or I will find someone who can." Zarkith knew his career and his life were on the line. "I need more ships. These humans fight differently than any species we've encountered. You have the largest fleet ever assembled. Use it." But Zarkith was beginning to understand something that terrified him. The hegemony had grown powerful by fighting enemies who wanted to minimize casualties. Humans seemed willing to accept enormous losses if it meant hurting their enemies. On Earth, Admiral Sullivan prepared for the next phase of the war. Intelligence reports showed the hegemony was pulling fleets from other sectors to fight humanity. "They're committing everything to crush us," she told her staff, "which means other parts of their empire are vulnerable." Admiral Morrison studied the star charts. "Kate, I have a crazy idea. I'm listening. What if we don't wait for them to attack our core worlds? What if we hit them where they don't expect it?" Sullivan raised an eyebrow. "You want to attack the Sol System's defenses while they're distracted?" "No," Morrison smiled. "I want to attack their home system." The room fell silent. The idea was insane. The hegemony capital was defended by thousands of ships and orbital fortresses, but it was exactly the kind of crazy plan that humans were famous for. "We'll need every ship we can get," Sullivan said slowly, "and we'll probably all die." Morrison nodded. "Probably, but we'll make them remember us." Dr. Green spoke up from her station. "Admiral, I've been working on something. If we can get close enough to their command ships, I might be able to disable their entire fleet." "How?" "A virus. Not biological, but electronic. It spreads through their communication networks and shuts down their weapon systems." Sullivan looked around the room at Earth's defenders. They were outnumbered 1,000 to 1. Their enemy controlled half the galaxy. Any sane species would surrender, but humans had never been accused of being sane. "Gentlemen, ladies," Sullivan said, "we're going to do something that will either save humanity or get us all killed." Morrison grinned. "Sounds like a Tuesday." The final battle for human survival was about to begin. President Helen Ward stood in the emergency meeting room beneath the White House. Around the table sat the most important people on Earth. The decision they made today would change human history forever. "The alien fleet is 3 days away from Earth," Admiral Sullivan reported. 500 ships. The biggest force they have ever sent against one world. President Ward looked tired. She had not slept in 2 days. "How many ships can we put against them?" 50, Sullivan answered. "Maybe 60 if we pull everything back from the outer colonies." The room was quiet. Everyone knew the math. 500 against 60 was not a battle. It was extinction. "What about evacuation?" asked General Ron Davis. "We have been moving people off Earth for weeks," President Ward replied. "But there are still 8 billion people on the planet. We cannot save them all," Admiral Morrison spoke up from his chair. "Madam President, there is another option. Tell me." "We do not wait for them to come to Earth. We take the fight to them." Dr. Rachel Green opened her computer. "The plan could work. While their main fleet attacks Earth, we hit their home world with everything we have left." President Ward stared at the star map on the screen. "You want to attack the center of their empire while they attack ours?" "Yes, ma'am," Morrison said. "Captain Nick Turner has been running raids deep in their territory. He has found something important." Captain Turner stood up. He looked older than his 30 years. Months of fighting behind enemy lines had changed him. "Madam President, I have been to 12 alien worlds in the past month. I rescued thousands of slaves from different species. What did you learn?" "The aliens are scared. For the first time in hundreds of years, their slaves are fighting back. There are rebellions starting on dozens of worlds." Turner pressed a button and pictures appeared on the screen. They showed alien cities burning and freed. Slaves holding human-made weapons. "This is Velkara," Turner said, pointing to a tall alien woman in one picture. "Her people were enslaved 400 years ago. She is now leading a rebellion on their home world." President Ward studied the picture. "What does she want from us?" "Help, weapons. Most importantly, she wants us to prove that the hegemony can be beaten." Sullivan leaned forward. "If we can destroy their capital, it will send a message to every enslaved species in the galaxy. It will also probably get us all killed," added Dr. Green. Morrison smiled. "Maybe, but it will be worth it." President Ward thought for a long moment. Outside, she could hear the sounds of people leaving Earth on the last evacuation ships. Soon, the planet would be defended only by those who chose to stay and fight. "Do it," she said finally. "Take every ship we can spare. Hit them where it hurts." 2 days later, Admiral Morrison led a fleet of 80 human ships toward the hegemony capital system. It was the largest human fleet ever assembled, but it was still tiny compared to what they would face. On Earth, Admiral Sullivan prepared for the alien attack. The planet's defenses looked hopeless, but humans had spent months preparing a surprise. "All stations report ready," said Commander Amy Johnson from the Lunar Command Center. Sullivan looked at the moon's surface through her window. It looked normal, covered with the same gray dust it had always worn. But that was an illusion. "Activate lunar defense grid," Sullivan ordered. Across the moon's surface, hidden panels slid open. The moon had been secretly converted into the largest weapon in human history. Thousands of missile launchers emerged from underground bunkers. Particle beam weapons rose from concealed positions. Launch bays opened to reveal squadrons of fighters. The moon had become humanity's ultimate fortress when the hegemony fleet arrived in the Sol system. War Prime Zarketh expected to find a broken and defeated enemy. Instead, he found Earth's defenders waiting for him. "Only 60 ships?" Zarketh laughed. "This will be over in an hour." His 500 ships moved toward Earth in perfect formation. The human ships seemed to flee toward the moon, just as Zarketh expected. Then the moon opened fire. Thousands of missiles streaked toward the alien fleet. Energy beams that could cut through asteroids sliced into alien ships. Fighters poured out of the moon like angry bees from a hive. Where did all these weapons come from? Zarketh screamed as his ships began exploding around him. The Battle of Sol became the largest space fight in galactic history. Alien ships crashed into Earth's atmosphere, burning like falling stars. Human fighters danced between enemy vessels, their pilots knowing they were fighting for their home world. Sullivan watched from her command center as Earth's sky filled with fire. "All lunar batteries, continuous fire. Make every shot count." The battle raged for 6 hours. When the smoke cleared, the alien fleet was destroyed, but Earth had paid a terrible price. The planet's surface was scarred by crashed ships and falling debris. Millions of people had died. As the last alien ship exploded, Sullivan sent a message across the galaxy. "This is Admiral Kate Sullivan of Earth. We have just destroyed the largest hegemony fleet ever assembled. To all enslaved peoples listening, the hegemony can be beaten. Rise up, fight back. Earth stands with you." Meanwhile, Admiral Morrison's fleet had reached the hegemony capital system. The alien homeworld of Zulthuros was protected by orbital fortresses and defense fleets, but most of their ships had been sent to attack Earth. "All ships, this is Morrison," the Admiral broadcast to his fleet. "Remember why we are here. Every human who has died. Every slave who dreams of freedom. Today we show the galaxy that tyrants can fall." Captain Turner led the first attack wave. His ships, filled with freed aliens from a dozen species, struck the orbital defenses. Velkara herself was on his bridge, helping to coordinate the assault. "The defense platforms are focusing on us," Turner reported. "They do not expect attacks from so many directions." Dr. Green's computer virus was already spreading through the alien communication networks. One by one, defense systems began shutting down as the virus corrupted their software. The human fleet fought its way through the defenses toward the planet below. They were not trying to capture the world. They were trying to send a message. Morrison's flagship reached the planet's upper atmosphere. He opened a communication channel that would broadcast across the entire galaxy. "This is Admiral Jake Morrison of the Human Liberation Fleet," he said, his voice calm and clear. "We stand above the hegemony capital. We have destroyed their greatest fleet. We offer freedom to all who want it." Below them, the capital city of the hegemony burned as freed slaves rose in rebellion. Across the galaxy, other species heard Morrison's message and began their own uprisings. On the prison world of Thylo 7, Kilthara listened to the human broadcast with tears in her eyes. "They did it," she whispered to her fellow prisoners. "They actually reached the hegemony capital." Around her, slaves who had served for centuries began to stand up. For the first time in their lives, they believed they could be free. High Executor Mordin, supreme leader of the hegemony, sent a desperate message from his bunker deep beneath the capital city. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "No species has ever reached our home world. No one has ever defeated our fleets." Morrison's reply was broadcast for all to hear. "We are humans. We do not surrender. We do not break. And we do not forget our friends or forgive our enemies. Your empire of fear ends today." The battle for the capital lasted another hour. When it was over, the hegemony's government had fallen. Their fleets were scattered or destroyed. Most importantly, their slaves across the galaxy had seen that the impossible was possible. Velkara stood on the bridge of Turner's ship, looking down at the world where her people had been enslaved for 4 centuries. "What happens now?" she asked. Morrison answered over the radio from his ship. "Now we build something better. A galaxy where the strong protect the weak instead of enslaving them." As human ships began landing on the capital world to help organize the new government, President Ward's voice reached them from Earth. "Admiral Morrison, you have done something that will be remembered for 1,000 years. You have shown the galaxy that tyranny always falls when good people refuse to give up." Morrison looked out at the stars, thinking of all the worlds where people were tasting freedom for the first time. "Madam President, this is just the beginning. We have a galaxy to rebuild." And in the years that followed, they did exactly that. The Galactic Federation rose from the ashes of the hegemony, built on the simple idea that all intelligent beings deserve to be free. But it all started with humans who refused to surrender, even when surrender seemed like the only choice. 1 year after the fall of the hegemony capital, the galaxy was a very different place. Admiral Chris Taylor stood on the bridge of his flagship as the largest fleet in galactic history prepared for its final mission. "Admiral, all ships report ready," said his communications officer. Around them in space, 3,000 vessels from 40 different species waited for orders. Taylor looked at the fleet with pride. A year ago, most of these ships had belonged to enslaved peoples who thought freedom was impossible. Now they flew together under the banner of the Galactic Liberation Force. "This is Admiral Taylor to all ships," he broadcast. "Today we finish what humanity started. Today we end the hegemony forever." The target was the Outer Rim, where the last hegemony forces had gathered under Emperor Zul'Thanir himself. The ancient ruler had ruled for over 1,000 years, and he would not give up easily. Dr. Mary Allen worked at her computer station, making final adjustments to her latest creation. She had called it the Liberation Virus, but it was not meant to make people sick. Instead, it was designed to spread through enemy computer networks and carry messages of hope to any slaves who might still be trapped. "The virus is ready," she reported. "As soon as we get close enough to their command ships, it will spread through their entire communication system." Commander Alex Johnson, who now led resistance forces from 12 different species, studied the tactical display. "Our scouts report the enemy has about 2,000 ships, but most of their crews are forced conscripts from conquered worlds." Taylor nodded. Intelligence reports suggested that many alien soldiers were looking for a chance to switch sides. The hegemony had always ruled through fear, but fear was losing its power. Captain Nick Turner, now wearing the uniform of the Liberation Fleet, had spent months recruiting allies from across the galaxy. "Admiral Velkara sends word that her people are ready. Rebellions are active on 30 hegemony worlds." Velkara had become the unofficial leader of the freed species. Her broadcasts encouraging resistance had inspired uprisings throughout the former empire. As the Liberation Fleet moved toward the final battle, news reached them from Earth. President Helen Ward had been working with leaders from dozens of species to create something new. "The Galactic Federation Charter has been signed," Ward announced over subspace radio. 43 species have agreed to form a voluntary alliance based on freedom and mutual protection. Admiral Morrison, now serving as Earth's representative to the new Federation, added his voice to the broadcast. "The Charter's first law is simple. No species shall ever again be enslaved or conquered by another." But before the new Federation could truly begin, the last hegemony stronghold had to be eliminated. The final battle took place in the Terminus system, where Emperor Zul'Thanir had gathered every remaining loyal ship. The ancient alien ruler had never personally commanded a battle before, but he refused to surrender his empire. "Bring me Admiral Taylor," Zul'Thanir demanded over the communication channels as the two fleets faced each other. "I would speak with the leader of these rebels." Taylor accepted the call. On his screen appeared an alien unlike any he had seen before. Zul'Thanir was enormous, with golden skin and eyes that seemed to burn with inner fire. "So you are the humans, who think they can destroy an empire that has lasted for a millennium," the Emperor said, his voice echoing with arrogance. "Your empire was built on the suffering of others," Taylor replied calmly. "It ends today." Zul'Thanir laughed, a sound like thunder. "Young species always think they can change the galaxy. I have seen 100 civilizations rise and fall. You will be forgotten like all the others." "Maybe," Taylor said. "But the people you enslaved will remember that someone stood up to you." The Emperor's expression grew dark. "You have no idea what forces you are challenging. I am older than your entire species. I have conquered worlds when your people were still living in caves." Taylor smiled. "That is exactly your problem. You are old. You have not learned anything new in centuries. But humans never stop learning." As if to prove his point, Dr. Allen's liberation virus activated. Across the hegemony fleet, computer systems began displaying messages in dozens of languages. "Freedom is possible. The hegemony can be defeated. Choose your side. Many alien ships immediately stopped firing. Their crews, mostly enslaved soldiers, turned their weapons on the remaining loyal vessels. Impossible! Zulfana screamed as his own fleet began fighting itself. My soldiers are loyal. They were never your soldiers, Taylor replied. They were your prisoners, and now they are free. The battle became a chaotic mix of ship-to-ship combat and internal rebellions. Freed alien crews fought alongside human vessels against the Emperor's remaining loyal forces. Colonel Steve Martinez led boarding parties onto hegemony command ships, not to destroy them but to help enslaved crews take control. His teams carried liberation viruses and freedom broadcasts instead of just weapons. On one captured ship, a group of alien soldiers who had been slaves for decades wept openly as they realized they were finally free. What do we do now? One of them asked Martinez through a translator. Now you go home, Martinez replied. And you help others find their freedom too. Emperor Zulfanar made his final stand from his massive fortress ship. Even as his empire crumbled around him, he refused to surrender. I will not bow to inferior species. He roared as Liberation fleet ships surrounded his vessel. Admiral Taylor tried one last time to end the battle peacefully. Surrender, Emperor. Your empire is finished. Your people want to be free. Never. The Emperor's ship fired everything it had at the Liberation fleet. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of ships from dozens of species returned fire at once. When the smoke cleared, the Emperor's fortress was destroyed and Zulfanar was dead. The last ruler of the hegemony had fallen with his empire. As news of the victory spread across the galaxy, celebrations began on hundreds of worlds. Species that had been enslaved for centuries danced in their streets for the first time in generations. Velkara broadcast a message to all formerly enslaved peoples. Today we are not just free. Today we are equals. Tomorrow we build a galaxy where this can never happen again. Dr. Allen's liberation virus had done more than help win the battle. It had spread across the entire galaxy, carrying the Federation Charter and instructions for peaceful self-governance to every world. Within months, the Galactic Federation had grown to over 100 member species. The organization was based on Earth but governed by representatives from every world. The Federation's first major project was building memorials on former hegemony worlds to remember those who had died as slaves. The largest memorial was built on the former capital world, now renamed Liberation. Admiral Morrison, now an old man, attended the dedication ceremony. As he walked through the memorial garden where the Emperor's palace had once stood, he saw children from dozens of species playing together. Hard to believe it has been 50 years, said Admiral Taylor, who had retired to become the Federation's first Secretary of Peace. Morrison nodded, watching a human child teach an alien friend how to throw a baseball. Sometimes I wonder if we really changed anything. Look around, Taylor replied. When was the last time you heard of one species enslaving another? Morrison smiled. Never, not once in 50 years. Then we did change something. We changed everything. Near the memorials center stood a simple stone monument with words carved in every known language. Here fell the last empire built on fear. May such tyranny never rise again. Below those words was a smaller inscription. To the humans who showed the galaxy that the smallest voice can echo across the stars. As the ceremony ended and the crowds dispersed, Morrison remained by the monument. A young alien approached him, one of the many who had never known slavery. Sir, were you really there when the humans first fought the hegemony? The youngster asked. Morrison looked down at the child, thinking of all the battles, all the sacrifices, all the friends who had died to make this day possible. Yes, he said quietly. We were there. What made humans fight when everyone else gave up? Morrison thought for a moment, then knelt down to the child's level. We fought because someone had to. We fought because we believed that freedom is worth any price. And we fought because we knew that if we did not stand up to bullies, no one would. The child nodded seriously, then ran off to rejoin friends from 3 different worlds. Morrison stood and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, on hundreds of worlds, people lived free because humans had refused to surrender. The galaxy had learned that courage was contagious, that freedom was possible, and that tyrants always fall when good people refuse to give up. The human warning had become prophecy. The alien worlds had indeed burned, not with weapons, but with the fire of liberation that still burned bright across the galaxy. And in the end, that made all the difference.